No one escapes it. The final breath, the cold embrace, the crossing into the unknown. But what happens next? Do we rise to paradise, face judgment, or embark on a perilous journey? Different cultures, different answers. This is Pantheon Mythology, and today we're exploring the question, what happens when we die, according to mythology? And hey, if you'd rather not leave this world empty-handed, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by legends from around the world. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. Right, here we go. We begin in ancient Egypt, where death is not an end, but a journey, and everyone must undertake it. The soul, known as the Ka, rises from the body at the moment of death, still tethered to the physical world. But it cannot stay. To reach the afterlife, it must enter the Duat, the vast and mysterious underworld that lies beyond the horizon. The Duat is a realm of shifting landscapes, winding rivers, burning deserts, endless caverns. Gods watch from the shadows, spirits whisper through the air, and terrifying creatures lurk in the dark. This is not a realm for the unprepared. The dead must pass through gates, each guarded by powerful deities who demand the right words, the right prayers, the right knowledge. Without them, the Ka is lost forever. But the soul does not embark on this journey without guidance. The living ensure the burial rites are performed correctly, that the body is preserved, and the deceased is given the sacred spells and knowledge needed to survive in the trials ahead. These come from the Book of the Dead, a collection of incantations designed to open doors, ward off threats, and help the soul navigate the dangers of the afterlife. If the Ka makes it through, it reaches the Hall of Ma'at, where its fate will be decided. The air is still. The gods are watching. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification and the afterlife, steps forward to guide the soul to its final judgment. He takes the heart of the deceased and places it upon the great golden scales. On the other side rests the feather of Ma'at, the divine force that holds the universe together. Every action in life has weight. Lies, cruelty, and selfishness drag the heart down. Honesty, compassion, and justice keep it light. Osiris, ruler of the underworld, presides over the trial, alongside 42 divine judges, each representing a different aspect of truth and morality. The judge listens as the deceased recites the negative confession, swearing that they have not stolen, not lied, have not taken life unjustly. But words alone do not determine fate. The scales do not lie. If the heart is light, the soul is declared pure. The gates to the field of reeds open, and the deceased steps forward into a paradise where life continues in perfection. Here loved ones are waiting, crops grow without toil, and the world exists in harmony, untouched by suffering or time. But if the heart is heavy, there is no appeal, no second trial. At the foot of the scales, Amit is waiting. She's part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus, the most feared creatures of the Nile combined into one. The wicked have only one fate. If the scales tip against them, Amit devours their heart, and their soul ceases to exist. No afterlife, no reincarnation, only oblivion. In Greek mythology, as life fades, Hermes, the swift-footed messenger of the gods, arrives to guide the departed on their first steps into the afterlife. The soul follows him through the shadowy paths of the underworld, eventually arriving at the banks of the river Styx, the dark and restless boundary between the living and the dead. Waiting on the shore is Charon, the ferryman of the dead. His boat creaks against the water as he extends a skeletal hand. Passage comes at a cost. A coin, traditionally placed in the mouth of the deceased during burial, must be paid. Without it, the soul is stranded, left to wander the banks of the Styx for eternity, never finding peace. Those who secure passage step into Charon's boat, drifting across the dark waters towards the gates of the underworld. The three-headed hound Cerberus waits at the entrance, his snarling heads ensuring that none who enter may ever leave. Beyond him lies the vast realm of Hades, where the dead face judgment. 3 great judges preside over the fate of each soul: Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus. They weigh a person's deeds, deciding where they will spend eternity. Those who are truly heroic and virtuous are granted entry into Elysium, a land of golden fields, endless feasts, and eternal joy. Here, the most honored souls spend their afterlife free of pain, surrounded by beauty and light. For those who lived ordinary, unremarkable lives, neither good nor evil, there is no paradise nor torment. Instead, they drift into the asphodel meadows, a vast, misty plain where souls exist in quiet, dreamlike indifference. Here memories fade, emotions dull, and the afterlife stretches into eternity as a formless existence. The wicked, however, are sent deep into the abyss of Tartarus, a prison far beneath even Hades' domain. Here souls suffer eternal punishment, each torment crafted to match their crimes. Sisyphus pushes his boulder uphill, only for it to roll back down. Tantalus stands in a pool of water he can never drink, beneath fruit he can never reach. This is where the worst of the worst are condemned to suffer, forgotten by the gods. But not all souls make it to judgment. Those denied proper burial, those who were never given the rights to pass to the underworld, are left stranded. They wander the shores of the Styx as restless shades, unable to find peace, lingering forever on the edges of existence. In Norse mythology, death is not the same for everyone. The manner of passing shapes the soul's journey, deciding whether it will feast among gods, wander in cold and mist, or suffer in darkness. If a warrior dies on the battlefield, the Valkyries descend from the skies, their shining armor glinting in the fading light. They choose the bravest among the fallen, lifting them from the bloodied earth and carrying them to Valhalla, the great hall of Odin. There, the chosen dead, the Einherjar, spend their days locked in glorious combat. They fight, they die, they rise again, and at night they feast in Odin's hall, drinking from never-ending horns of mead. They train for Ragnarok, the final battle, where they will fight at the side of the gods. But not all warriors go to Odin. Some are chosen by Freya, the goddess of love and war, who takes her share of the slain to Folkvangr. Her realm is a place of peace and beauty, a land of green fields where warriors find rest. Unlike Valhalla, where the battle rages eternally, Folkvangr is a paradise of serenity, ruled by a goddess whose power is equal to Odin's own. For those who do not die in battle, the journey is different. Their souls drift downward, beyond the mortal world, crossing the Gjol River, which separates them from the living dead. A single bridge, Gjalabru, stretches across the icy waters, watched over by Mordguth, a spectral guardian who allows only the dead to pass. Beyond the bridge lies Helheim, the cold, misty realm ruled by the goddess Hel, daughter of Loki. Unlike Valhalla and Folkvangr, there is no honor or glory in Helheim, only an existence without warmth or joy. Those who die of old age or sickness find themselves in a realm of endless twilight, where the dead linger as shadows, forgotten by the living. It is not a place of torture, but it is not a place of peace. The most dishonourable have a far worse fate. Deep in the darkest part of Helheim lies Narstrand, where the wicked, oath-breakers, murderers, and betrayers suffer eternally. Venomous serpents coil above them, dripping poison onto their souls. Here, there is no escape, no rest, no end. In Hindu beliefs, the soul known as Atman rises from the body, but it does not depart immediately. For 10 days it lingers in the mortal world, still tied to its earthly existence. It remains near familiar places, drawn to its home and loved ones, unable to fully sever its connection to life. During this time, Hindu funeral rites are crucial. Family members offer sacred rice bowls and perform water libations, which nourish and strengthen the soul. These rituals help the Atman from its subtle body, the spiritual vessel it will need for the journey ahead. Without these offerings, the passage to the next realm is far more difficult. On the 11th and 12th days, additional ceremonies are conducted, further preparing the soul for its transition. Then, on the 13th day, the Yamadutas, the messengers of Yama, arrive. There is no more waiting. The journey to Yamaloka has begun. Escorted by the Yamadutas, the soul travels through dark and treacherous realms. It crosses fearsome rivers, wanders through barren lands, and faces shadowy passageways. Each step is dictated by karma. The virtuous are guided gently, while the sinful struggle, feeling every hardship as an ordeal. At last, after nearly a year, the soul arrives before Chitragupta, the divine scribe of Yama. He unfurls the Agrasandhani, the great record of deeds where every action, every kindness, every cruelty has been written. Judgment cannot be escaped. Then comes the moment of truth. For most, there is rebirth. The soul is sent back to the cycle of samsara, reincarnating into a new life. Karma decides everything. A life of virtue may lead to a noble or prosperous rebirth, while greed, cruelty, or violence may cast a soul into hardship, or even into a lower form of existence. For those whose sins outweigh their virtues, there is Naraka. Here, the soul endures temporary suffering, facing trials that cleanse it of past misdeeds. But Naraka is not eternal. Once the soul's karmic debts have been repaid, it is released, free to be reborn once more. But for the rarest of souls, the enlightened ones, there is moksha. No more rebirth, no more suffering. The Atman, freed from the illusion of self, merges with Brahman, the ultimate reality. It dissolves into eternal peace, beyond the reach of time. Moving to Chinese mythology now, where the soul arrives at the banks of the Wangchuan River, the darkest water that separates the world of the living from the underworld. The dead must cross, but how they do so depends on the life they lived. Ahead stands the Naya Bridge, the bridge of helplessness. A virtuous soul walks across effortlessly, the path smooth beneath its feet. A soul burdened by sin struggles. Gusting winds, crumbling stone, and shadowy figures claw at its form, making every step a torment. There is no turning back. On the other side, the 10 courts of hell await. Here, the dead face judgment, their actions in life weighed against the laws of the underworld. Yanluo Wang, the ruler of the underworld, watches as the soul is brought forward. The courts are vast and terrifying, each presided over by a judge who examines every crime, every kindness, every secret thought. Those who lived with honor pass through unscathed, but for the wicked, there is punishment. A soul that has taken from others may be stretched until its bones break. One that spoke only lies may have its tongue cut away. A murderer might find itself thrown into boiling oil, its form burned away, only to be restored and suffer again. But no torment lasts forever. These punishments are not eternal damnation, but a means of cleansing or atonement. When the soul's debt is paid, it moves on. At the final gate, a woman awaits. Mong Pua, the Lady of Forgetfulness, offers the soul a simple bowl of tea. The price of reincarnation is memory. One sip, and every past life fades. Its joys, its griefs, its triumphs, its failures all vanish into oblivion. Only then is the soul ready to step forward into the wheel of rebirth, where it is cast into the new life, its fate shaped by the karma it has carried across lifetimes. And so, the cycle continues. For the Aztecs, death was the beginning of a long, grueling journey. The soul did not simply pass into the afterlife, it had to endure 9 perilous levels of Mictlan, the underworld, before it could finally rest. This journey took 4 years, testing the strength, resilience, and endurance of the deceased at every stage. The first trial begins in Mictlan, the place of dogs. The deceased arrives at the banks of the Apparel, a wide and treacherous river. Mictlan, the sacred hairless dog, waits at the shore, ready to guide the soul across the water. Those who had a strong bond with dogs in life pass smoothly, carried by their loyal companion. Once across, the soul reaches Mictlan, the place of the colliding mountains. Here, 2 enormous mountains crash together repeatedly, threatening to crush anything caught between them. The soul must navigate through at the right moment, avoiding destruction as the peaks slam together with terrifying force. If they survive, they step into Itzehekayan, where relentless howling winds hurl razor-sharp obsidian shards through the air. The cutting gusts rip into the soul, stripping away what remains of its earthly form. There is no shelter, no protection, only the unrelenting storm. Next comes Temimi na Loayan, the place where arrows rain down. Here, unseen hands fire endless volleys of arrows from the darkness. The soul must press on, enduring the constant assault, never knowing when or where the next strike will land. If they make it through, they arrive at Pinekatakoyan, a land where the ground is unstable, shifting beneath their feet like cloth caught in the wind. The soul is tossed about, struggling to find balance, never knowing if the next step will send them tumbling into the abyss. Then comes Tealoqualoyan, the place where hearts are devoured. Here terrifying creatures lurk in the shadows, hungry for the essence of the dead. They seek to tear the soul apart, consuming its heart, the very core of its being. If the soul endures, it enters Mictlan, the place where bodies are crushed. Here the soul's body is metaphorically broken down, stripping away all lingering ties to the physical world, reducing them to their purest form. Next, the soul reaches Mictlan upon Kaloka, where thick, suffocating black smoke fills the air, choking the breath and obscuring the path. The way forward is hidden, and the soul must navigate through this darkness alone. At last, they reach Mictlan, the 9th and final level. Here they must cross 9 vast lagoons, their waters deep and endless. There is no guide, no easy path. The soul must struggle forward, pushing through exhaustion and despair to reach the far shore. If they succeed, they stand before Mictlantecuhtli, the skeletal lord of the underworld, and his consort, Mictecasihuatl. There is no reward, no paradise, only peace. The soul has earned its rest, free from the trials of the living world. We now move on to Mayan mythology, where the soul must descend into Xibalba, the dark underworld ruled by death gods Hun Kame and Vukub Kame. Here, it faces trials designed to test its worth. The journey is treacherous from the start. As the soul enters Xibalba, it is met by trickster demons, mischievous beings that deceive and torment the dead, leading them astray at every turn. These demons are not there to guide, they are there to challenge. One of the first tests is the River of Scorpions, where the soul must cross waters filled with deadly creatures. The current is swift and the scorpion's sting is fatal, but with courage and cunning, the soul must continue forward. The next trial is the House of Cold, a place so frigid that the soul feels as though it is being frozen alive. The biting winds and freezing temperatures push the soul to its limits. Only those who can endure the cold will be allowed to move on. As the soul continues, it may find itself in the House of Jaguars, where fierce predatory creatures wait to tear at it. It must outsmart these beasts or face painful demise. Beyond that lies the House of Bats, where the soul is surrounded by a storm of flapping wings and the threat of being bitten by the creatures that swarm in the darkness. After that comes the House of Blades, where the soul must navigate a dangerous path filled with sharp, cutting obstacles. The sharp edges threaten to slice through the soul, but perseverance is key. The final test is the House of Fire, where the soul must pass through scorching heat, the flames licking at its very being. If the soul can endure all of these trials, it will reach the final judgment. Some souls, proven worthy, are allowed to ascend to the sky world, a place of eternal peace and rest. But others, those who fail the tests, remain in Xibalba, bound to wander its dark and oppressive depths for all eternity. In Celtic mythology, death marks the beginning of a journey to the otherworld, a realm that exists beyond the veil of life. The path to this mystical place is not always the same. Some souls travel through burial mounds, ancient sites that act as gateways between the living world and the otherworld. Others cross through thick mists or embark on spirit boats that carry them across the waters, leading them to the next phase of existence. In this otherworld, the soul has several possible destinations. One of the most sought after is Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth. It is a paradise, a timeless realm where souls live forever young, free from the pains of aging, sickness or death. The soul that reaches Tir na Nog finds peace and joy, reunited with loved ones in a world of endless beauty and harmony. Here life continues in perfection, untouched by suffering. Not all souls make it to Tir na Nog. Some are drawn to Annwn, a mysterious realm that lies somewhere between heaven and hell. Annwn is a place of enigma, where the soul experiences neither eternal bliss nor torment. It is a land that exists outside of conventional notions of paradise or punishment, a place of change and transformation. For other souls, the journey doesn't end with arrival in one of these realms. Some are reborn, returning to the physical world in new forms. Reincarnation is an essential belief in Celtic mythology. Souls can experience multiple lives, each one carrying the lessons of the last. A prime example is Tuan mac Cerel, a soul that is reborn again and again, taking on the forms of various animals, including a stag, a boar, a hawk, and a salmon. Each life adds to the soul's wisdom, and with every rebirth, it grows stronger. In Slavic mythology, death is not an immediate departure. The soul lingers for 40 days, wandering the world of the living, revisiting familiar places, and watching over loved ones. This is a time of transition, where the soul gradually detaches itself from earthly existence. Funeral rites are crucial during this period. Without them, the dead may struggle to move on. Offerings of food, drink, and symbolic possessions are left at grave sites to provide for the soul's journey. Family members hold pominki, ceremonial feasts where the deceased is honored, their names spoken aloud so they are not forgotten. These rituals ensure the soul is guided safely to the afterlife. When the time comes, the soul embarks on its journey to Navia, the realm of the dead. This is not a place of punishment or reward, but a realm beyond the living, where souls find their resting place. The journey is not taken alone. Veles, the god of the underworld, magic and the waters, guides the dead, leading them beyond the veil and ensuring they reach their destination, Some believe that the souls must cross a dark river, navigating mist-covered waters before reaching the afterlife. The crossing is smooth for those who lived honorably, but those who carried sin in life may find the waters rough, the current pulling them back toward the land of the living. But not every soul finds peace. Those who die violently, without proper burial, or who are forgotten by the living risk becoming restless spirits, forever trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. Some become Zmora, shadowy figures that slip into homes and bring nightmares. Others, twisted by death, transform into Upir, blood-drinking creatures that hunt the living, the origins of the later vampire legends. Yet these are only some of the fates awaiting the lost. There are many ways a soul can linger, many forms it can take, and many dangers that come with neglecting the dead. In Japanese mythology, the afterlife is not a single destination but a journey shaped by different traditions, one rooted in Shinto belief, the other influenced by Buddhist teachings. From a Shinto perspective, the dead pass into Yomi, the shadowy land of the dead. It is a place of stagnation where the soul lingers in a twilight existence, neither punished nor rewarded. One of the earliest accounts of Yomi comes from the Kojiki, an 8th century text that records Japan's oldest myths and legends. It tells the story of Izanami, the mother of the gods, who dies and descends into Yomi. Her husband attempts to bring her back, but when he sees her rotting form, he flees in horror, sealing the entrance with a massive boulder. This act severs the living from the dead. Once a soul enters Yomi, it cannot return. Unlike many afterlife beliefs, there is no judgment in Shinto. Instead, the fate of the soul depends on the living. If properly honored through the rituals and remembrance, the dead can become revered ancestral spirits. But Buddhist influence adds another layer to the journey of the soul. Here, death leads to the Sanzu River, a boundary between the worlds. The manner of crossing reflects a person's actions in life. The virtuous walk across a sturdy bridge. Those with mixed deeds wade through shallow waters. But the truly wicked are dragged into the depths, unable to move forward. On the other side, the soul meets Tatsueba, the old hag of the underworld. She strips them of their clothes, symbols of their sins, and her companion, Keneo, weighs them on a tree. The heavier the sins, the harder the journey ahead. Next comes Meido, the land of the dead, where the soul faces judgment from the 10 kings of hell. They decide its fate, rebirth, purification, or descent into Jigoku, the Buddhist underworld, where sins are atoned through suffering. But even this is not eternal. Souls may eventually be cleansed and reborn. Yet not all souls reach judgment. Those who die suddenly, violently, or with unfinished business may never move on. They become yurei, restless spirits that remain tethered to the mortal world. Some take the form of onryo, a vengeful type of yurei, known for cursing the living and bringing misfortune. These spirits, consumed by rage, are among the most feared, their presence lingering long after death. We move now to Mesopotamia, where death is an inevitable descent into Kur, the vast underworld that lies beneath the earth. When the body grows cold, the soul, now a Jidim, separates and begins its journey into darkness. The path to Kur is long and lonely. The soul moves downward, slipping from the warmth of the living world into the cold, silent depths below. There is no guide, no guardian to ease the passage. The entrance to the underworld is a gaping chasm, guarded by fierce gatekeepers who allow no return. The dead must pass through 7 gates, each one stripping them further of what little remains: name, status, memory. By the time they reach the depths, they are nothing but shadows. At the heart of Kur sits Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. She rules over the dead, who wander aimlessly in a land of dust and silence. There is no judgment, no reward, no punishment. All, rich and poor, noble and criminal, share the same fate. The dead eat clay and drink from stagnant puddles, exiting in a hollow echo of life. But even here, the dead are not entirely forgotten. The Mesopotamians believed that the living held power over the dead. Offerings of food and drink were left at gravesites, ensuring that ancestors did not wither into nothingness. If neglected, a Jidim could grow hungry, restless, and return to the world of the living. These spirits were feared, appearing as shadows in the night, whispering in the dark, bringing misfortune to those who had failed to honor them. For the Yoruba people, death is a journey into Orun, the vast spiritual realm that lies beyond the world of the living. When a person dies, their soul departs from the body and begins its ascent, drawn toward the domain of the ancestors. In Orun, the dead are not forgotten. The ancestors watch over the living, guiding them, shaping their fates, whispering wisdom through dreams and omens. A soul that has lived well, honoring tradition, showing kindness, fulfilling its purpose is welcomed among them, joining the great lineage of spirits who continue to influence the world. But not every soul remains. The Yoruba believe in Atunwa, the cycle of return. Some souls are chosen to be reborn, returning to the mortal world through their descendants. It is said that an ancestor may come back as a grandchild, their essence carried forward into a new life. Signs of this return can be seen in a child's mannerisms, talents, or even birthmarks, traces of the past life carried into the present. Yet the journey is not always smooth. Souls that have left debts unpaid, that have wronged others, or that were not given the proper rights may become restless, lingering between realms. Without proper remembrance, they may struggle to find their place in Orun, their influence fading, their voices growing silent. In Tibetan Buddhism, death is not a single moment but the beginning of a journey through the Bardo, a realm between this life and the next. The Bardo Todol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, describes this passage in detail, guiding the soul through the 49 days that follow death. When the body grows still, the consciousness is released. The living world fades and the soul enters the first Bardo, the moment of ultimate clarity. For a brief instant, the pure light of Dharmata, the true nature of reality, shines before them. If they recognize this light, they will achieve nirvana, breaking free from the endless cycle of rebirth. But for most, this moment slips away, the attachments of their past life weighing them down. Fear sets in, and so the journey continues. The second Bardo begins, and the soul is confronted with visions, some radiant, some horrifying. Brilliant deities appear, offering wisdom and liberation, but the soul may recoil in fear, unable to face them. These deities are not separate beings but reflections of the mind itself, manifestations of karma taking shape in the void. If the soul does not recognize them for what they are, the visions darken. The radiant deities fade, and in their place come wrathful forms, terrifying demons, illusions of suffering, forces that shake the soul to its core. But these too are not external. They are the soul's own fears, its regrets, its unresolved burdens manifesting before it. If the soul cannot awaken to the truth, the third Bardo arrives. The visions disappear and the new force takes hold, karma. The weight of a lifetime now decides what comes next. The soul is drawn, as if by an unseen current, towards its next existence. If they have lived virtuously, they may move toward a favorable rebirth, drawn to a body that will allow them to continue their path towards enlightenment. But for those who have lived with hatred, greed, or cruelty, the pull is stronger, dragging them downward into suffering. Some will be cast into the hell realms, where agony reflects the nature of their past misdeeds. Others will become pretas, the hungry ghosts, cursed to wander in endless craving, never satisfied. Some may even be reborn as animals, trapped in cycles of ignorance, unable to understand their own fate. All the while, the Bardo Todol is read aloud by the living. Its verses call to the soul, reminding them of their choices, urging them to wake up, to recognize illusion, to seize the fleeting chance of escape. But for many, the moment passes. The pull of rebirth is too strong, and the cycle begins again. As we've seen, death is viewed through many lenses, shaped by culture and belief. Each tradition offers its own understanding of what awaits us, whether it's an eternal paradise, a circle of reincarnation, or a journey through trials and judgment. What these stories have in common, however, is the idea that how we live our lives shapes what comes next. So, what happens after we die? Perhaps, as these myths suggest, the answer isn't set in stone. Maybe it's something we're all still figuring out, a journey we'll take in our own time. But, in the end, it's not just the destination that matters. It's how we choose to walk the path.